before we get into substantive law, procedural law, and all these things, let me give you an analogy. Okay, so let us suppose that you have a house, okay, and it is near a river, okay, and there is actually a factory beside your house. So what that factory is doing is it is releasing the effluent into the water. So, as residents of that locality, you want to proceed before the court against that factory, okay? Because they're polluting the water and it is affecting even the crop growing patterns in the area. So that is why you will approach. When we talk about the criminal law, you will approach the court saying that you want the factory owner as well as the other people to actually get imprisonment as well as pay fine. Okay, that will come under the criminal law aspect. Now we'll talk about compensation. Compensation is something you can ask under the tort law. Okay, tort law. So what is exactly a tort? See, tort is nothing but a civil law. Okay, crime and a civil law. So what is the difference between a crime and a civil law? Crime is something which is a right in rem. Okay, and civil wrong is something which is a right in person. So what is exactly a right in rem? Something which is affecting the society as a whole. That is nothing but right in rem. That is why criminal law is considered to be something affecting the state itself. It will not affect an individual but the state. See, if a murder happens, it will affect the society also. That is why murder or any crimes, anything like that, they will come under right in rem. Okay, and we have right in personal. So your individual right has been violated. Let us suppose you have a house, and for the purpose of constructing a road, the local body wants to uh, encroach certain part of your property and then build a road upon that. So that is causing a nuisance to you, and you want to protect your property interest and all these things. So to stop that from happening, you will file a writ petition. Okay, you will file a writ petition under writ petition for mandamus. Okay, there are 5 writs which you can issue. The first one is writ of habeas corpus, and the next one is mandamus, and then certiorari, then quo warranto, and then prohibition. You will learn it in your constitutional law classes, but do know that mandamus is something which you will issue to actually ask a certain body to perform its duty, okay, and to perform the duty within its ambit. Okay, it should not be doing something beyond its jurisdiction. So that is what mandamus will actually do. Okay, so you will ask for a writ of mandamus in such a situation. Okay, so now we spoke about the tort aspect. Now we'll talk about the constitutional law aspect. See, that is affecting your right to clean environment, and then it is affecting your right to have food. Okay, so that is why we can also think that it will come under the municipal law. Okay, municipal law, constitutional law will come under public law. Okay, public law. See, it is affecting the public at large, so that is why it is concerned about the relationship between an individual and a state. That is why we call it as public law. Okay, and then it is if we take the private law aspect, private law is something which is affecting the individuals. See, in the tort example that I gave, that is affecting your right, it is not affecting the entire community's right. Okay, I told you, the house will be houses, the certain part of the house will have been used for building roads. Okay, so that is affecting your individual rights. Okay, so that is something which will come under private law. Okay, so we'll look into the various classifications, but do know that this example will help you understand the classifications under law. Now we'll come to substantive law and procedural law. The example that I gave, see what is the procedure that the court should follow to give you any relief. Okay, if there is a crime which is being committed, what should be the relief that you will have to see? You will first look into what is exactly the offense that the person has caused, and then you will also look into the procedures and the way in which it will be enforced. Okay, so if I have to tell you, substantive law will give you the rights, rules, regulations, obligations, and all these things, but procedural law will talk about the enforcement of rights. How will one enforce the rights? It is through procedural law. Okay. So that is the distinction between substantive law and procedural law. We'll look into the matter further. Okay. So what does substantive law talk about? It defines and determines rights and obligations of citizens to be protected by law. And then it also talks about offences and punishment. For example, BNS. So we have the various offences which have got defined. Okay. And then we have the punishment for it. Okay, so that is the part of substantive law. Okay, and then law of contract, law of property, specific relief act, all these are substantive laws. Okay, and then we have substantive law is procedural law is concerned with the regulation of conduct of people. Okay, and it also talks about the relationship between an individual and the court. Okay, what is the way in which a person can actually go forward and get the relief that he seeks. Okay, so it is concerned about the procedural aspects. So procedural law is concerned with affairs which happen inside the court and substantive law outside the court. Okay, so let us suppose that you are going on a ship. Okay, so that ship you are entering Sri Lanka. Okay, and then let us suppose you enter into a duel with somebody and you end up killing that person. So that crime is happening on international waters, okay, and that too in Sri Lanka. So where should exactly that person be sued? Is it Sri Lanka or India? So he will be sued in India. He or she will be sued in India because that the ship belongs to India. They have to be extradited back to India, and then they have to be tried under Indian laws. That is what ITC actually will talk about, or BNS will talk about. Okay, and then that will come under substantive law. Okay, substantive law, and then procedural law will be laid out under the BNSS. It will talk about, for example, you want to issue a summons, okay, or a warrant. If a police has to issue warrant, what is the procedure that the police have to follow? All these things will be laid out under the BNSS, and it will also lay down the jurisdiction. See, we have the court of sessions. Under that, we have the judicial magistrate first class, and then judicial magistrate second class. Like that, it will. The hierarchy of courts are like that. Lower courts. Okay. So each court has certain jurisdiction. Okay, and each court has jurisdiction. For example, they can impose only the judicial magistrate first class can impose only a fine up to 10,000 rupees, not beyond that. Okay. So if a matter and all these chief judicial magistrates and all these things, they cannot give a death sentence. So that is the jurisdiction that has been vested to that court. Okay. So the courts will follow its jurisdiction. Okay. So all these things will be dealt under the procedural law. And then I told you, procedural law will discuss about the jurisdiction, procedure for pleading and all these things. So an Indian Evidence Act, that is also a procedural law, and suits valuation. See, if there is let us suppose a matter like injunction or something. So before you go forward with the application and all these things, the suits will be evaluated. Okay, it will be valued, and then only you can file before the court. So what they will do is they will calculate it based on the market value of the property. Okay, there are various sections provided where it is explicitly given how to calculate this valuation for a particular suit. So we can file a suit for money recovery, we can file a suit for injunction, we can file a suit for possession, and all these things are there. So there are ways in which one has to calculate the suits. Okay, that has been given under Suits Valuation Act. That will also give out the procedure. Okay, so Suits Valuation Act, it will give out the procedure. So that is why it is considered to be a procedural law. Okay, we have the Karnataka Suits Valuation Act. That is nothing but a procedural law. Until now, you have understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, it is the civil and criminal law. Okay, so civil is nothing but derived from civis. Civis means citizen. Okay, so civil law is concerned with the private rights and remedies. Okay, and it is also something which is civil in nature. For example, like I told you, if a crime is involved, it is affecting the public at large. Okay, if a offense is committed today, it is affecting the public at large, and that is why always a criminal matter is against the state versus the accused. That is how the proceedings move further. Okay, and then you have to know that civil law, the remedy for civil law will always be compensation. Okay, but criminal law, it will always be punishment.
Punishment.
Okay, punishment, fine, penalty, and all these things. Okay, and then under civil law we have the various laws such as family law, property law, and law of torts. Okay, so under civil law we have personal law also. So family law is a personal law. Okay, we have the various religions, right? Like Hinduism, then we have Christianity, we have
Jainism.
Sikhism, then Islam, and all these things. So each religion follows its own way in which they interpret everything, like succession, then marriage, and all these things. Okay, so that is dealt under the family law. And what is exactly law of property? So law of property can be divided into two. One is movable property and immovable property. Okay, so whatever is there is the law associated with immovable property, that will be concerned under the Transfer of Property Act. Okay, I'll be discussing it in the subsequent slide. Next, it is the criminal law. Criminal law, I told you, it is something which is affecting the state at large. So that is why we have the BNS and the BNSS. All these are examples for criminal law. Okay, you have understood until now.
Yes, ma'am.
Then we have the legislations. There are various legislations which can be discussed. So the first one is primary legislation. Okay, primary legislation in the sense something which is coming out primarily. Like for example, uh, before we went forward with arbitration, before if a person had to go through arbitration and all these things, they had to go through section 89 of CPC. Under section 89 of CPC, courts will themselves refer the matter to arbitration and all these things. So people relied heavily on that section to go forward with arbitration and conciliation act. Okay, later on in the year around 1998, the arbitration and conciliation act was enacted. Okay, later on, that became the primary legislation which dealt with arbitration and conciliation in India. Okay, so whatever is the matter, or whatever is the relief that you are seeking, everything has remedy today. Okay, if there is no remedy, you should approach the legislature. It should make law, and then based on whatever is the law that it has made, the courts will interpret it. Okay, and then we have the supreme legislation. Okay, so we know the Indian constitution, right? So it is considered to be the mother of everything. Okay, every law in India derives power from the constitution. So constitution is the supreme legislation. Okay, if at all there are, for example, if there is a act which is restricting your power of freedom of speech and expression. Okay, if such provisions are there, the courts will struck down that provisions, stating that they are violating the constitution. Okay, and that is nothing but power of judicial review. Okay, judicial review. What is judicial review? The power of the courts to strike down laws as unconstitutional. Okay, so amending power under the Indian Constitution, amending power has been given only to the Parliament. That too under Article 368. See, under the if I have to talk about the procedure as to how lawmaking happens, if it is, let us suppose, a money bill or anything like that, we all know money bills are always introduced to the Lok Sabha. It will never go to the Rajya Sabha first. Okay. So, but if it is not a money bill, it will go to the Rajya Sabha first, then Lok Sabha, and then it will go to the President for assent. So here you have to know that there are two things. One is a simple majority way and special majority way. In simple majority, it's like 50% of the houses should agree for it. Okay. And in special majority, what should happen is two-thirds of members of the house should agree for the bill. Okay. Then only it will be passed to the particular house. So if we take Lok Sabha today into consideration, it should have 545 people in it. So two-thirds of them, that much of people should agree for the bill. Then only the bill can be passed. Okay. If it is a money bill, that is the level of rigidity that the law goes through. Okay. But if it is something which is not a money bill, simple thing, that will go through something called as simple majority rule. Okay. Next, we'll talk about the subordinate legislation. Okay, what is exactly subordinate? See, we have the Indian Constitution. From then, other laws have originated. Okay, so what are the subordinate legislation? Under that, it will be the colonial legislation. Okay, IPC is a colonial legislation. We know it was something which the British introduced. So when BNS actually came into existence, they also